Hello, and welcome to everyone attending today's webcast, Device Management and Classroom Collaboration, sponsored by TLC and Library Journal. My name is Rebecca Joswick, and I will be your moderator, but before we go further, I have a few housekeeping items to run through with you. If you are experiencing technical problems, please use the Q&A window on your audience console, and I will try to get to you as soon as possible with a resolution. If you have questions for our presenter, you can send those in at any time via the Q&A window as well. We will be saving some time at the end of this webcast to answer your questions, so don't be shy, send those in. If your screen becomes locked due to local network bandwidth issues, you can try using F5 to refresh your webcast console. If you're on a Mac, use Command R. Today's slide presentation will be available for download in the green Resources folder on the bottom menu dock. A certificate for continuing education credit is also available in the Resources folder, and it's labeled Certificate. TLC has also provided a couple of brochures, one on the device management platform that you'll be hearing about today, and one about Smart Class, so you can download those as well. Please join the conversation on Twitter. You can tweet us with the handle Library Journal using the hashtag LJTLC. I'm pleased to introduce Mike Willis, Business Development Manager at TLC, and he'll be talking with us today about TLC's device management platform. As our classrooms and libraries become more digitized and students engage with technology for all sorts of educational purposes, it's really important to make sure that devices are providing quality content and that we can monitor access and measure student activity and progress on those devices. Giving every student a tablet does little to foster learning and collaboration unless a thoughtful device management strategy is in place. And that's what Mike Willis is going to talk to us about. Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Rebecca, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for attending our webinar today to discuss device management and classroom collaboration. We certainly appreciate your time. As Rebecca just stated earlier, I am Mike Willis. I am TLC's Business Development Manager, and I've held numerous positions here at TLC over the years, so I'm very familiar with the workflows and pain points of both our school and public library systems. I'm also very aware, and I'm sure you are as well, that those workflows are constantly shifting nowadays more than ever. So I don't know about you, but I'm very excited about the increasing roles that librarians and teachers both play in the day-to-day management of our instructional technology, with our mobile devices becoming the norm rather than the exception nowadays. So laptops, tablets, smartphones, Chromebooks, basically they're all making their way into our schools now. Device management and classroom collaboration tools will help you increase time on task and can be adapted to any classroom or training configuration. So let's go ahead and get started. And first, let's just define what device management is. So device management basically allows your admin and your IT folks to manage and control devices that are on your network. This can be done either via cloud-based or also an on-premise server if you require that. As we say in the industry, it provides a single pane of glass for IT to manage all those solutions in one place. So IT help desk and administrators have the ability to link up with those devices and basically push things out to them as needed. So what you're going to do with device management is you're going to take control of those devices, and it's going to allow you to capitalize on your technology investment while at the same time integrating those devices into your technology plan. So TLC's MDM is operating system agnostic, which means it could be used for multiple device management solutions, iOS, Chromebooks, Windows, and of course Android. So, we started out in most of the districts, they were using iPads because iPad was the first mobile tablet device out there. And then we sort of migrated to Chrome and Android devices, and a lot of that was based on money constraints within the school systems. iPads are still very expensive, and managing those are as well. So remote control. A big part of an MDM is allowing IT to support the devices that are on the network. So with remote control, it allows you to single out any individual device and basically remote into that device and take over the screen, or just sort of coach somebody through a process. And again, this is all from a single pane. You can open multiple remote control windows, and you can also share everything back and forth. So you have complete control over the device as far as pushing things out and pulling files back and forth. Basically with that, it's all the things that your IT staff should expect within a system, which then also gets a little deeper as we go into device policy. So when it comes to policies, you more or less have various programs or apps that you might want to push out to devices. So you can set it up that when the devices come online, they're more or less going to the server, asking for their configuration, and then it gets set up according to that configuration. So you can create an encapsulated environment where you're more or less locking down the device completely if you want it to be in a kiosk mode or something like that. Maybe you're using the device for some type of signage in your library or school. You can lock down specific apps, which means we can follow the rules of any type of whitelisting and blacklisting for websites as well as apps, so you can restrict that access. Another big thing that we have, along with the whitelist and blacklist, as well as what you see here where it says restrict tablet usage by schedules or triggers, that allows you to take groups of devices and more or less apply a policy to them all at once. So the trigger is based on whether they're in a specific area, which we call geofencing. So you can define your campus so that when a device gets on the network in the campus, and it takes control based on that agent being loaded on the device. It can also be based on time. So maybe you just want to define it to lock down the device during the school hours. And then, of course, you can also do it by the SSID, the identifier for the Wi-Fi network that you may be on. So you have all those different ways to, in a sense, invoke the MDM. And also it's a way to, if it's a BYOD, bring your own device situation, then also when the student leaves the campus, their device is, in a sense, unlocked so they can use it as they always had before. So you have complete control when they're in a defined area that you create. Software distribution and update. So again, we're talking about policies. It's the same thing for things like apps and software. It's the best way to think about it is you're going to distribute the applications, and it's similar to a login script situation. So when you boot the device up, the agent is always running in the background, and it's making a call out to the server in the cloud or on-prem. And when it makes the call to the MDM server, it's saying, what are my instructions? What config should I use? How should I act right now on the network? So what that means is you have a lot of leadway to either completely lock the device down or completely open it up. It's really up to you. But one thing in particular we find a lot of customers like is that we can provision, say, a cart full of tablets or laptops for testing, standardized testing. So again, when you boot up and then it goes to the server and asks for that config might say, let's just lock it down, load the secure browser, and then based on the whitelist, you can send them to a specific portal. So whether it's, say, state standardized testing, or maybe you use Pearson or somebody like that for administering tests, when you whitelist that portal, anything that doesn't match up to the domain will be told that you're not authorized to access that. Device tracking and locking. So since everything's online, as you would expect, our system should always know where it's located. So with that said, we do device tracking by either GPS or the mobile data network or via Wi-Fi. So when a device is active or live on any type of network, the agent's talking to the cloud-based server to more or less give feedback for where it's located, and also sending different metrics about the device itself And then, of course, as you would expect, if we know where to find it, we should be able to control it once we find it. So you have the ability to do what we call a lock and wipe. So you could lock the device so people can't even get to the main screens, and then you could also completely wipe it remotely. Monitoring and alerts. I certainly don't want to bore the whole group by going down this long bullet list, but as we all know, our IT folks love alerts. Well, TLC as well loves alerts. We employ many alerts already in our current ILS system. In other words, we have alerts set up and monitoring to always be checking our database as far as the health and the efficiency. So what we're doing is we're looking to be proactive, not reactive to any issues that might come up. So those various alerts would help IT sniff out a problem that might be brewing before it becomes a big issue on a large scale. Fact-based decisions and reports. Well, I would say if IT loves alerts, then your admin folks love the reporting features, right? And so does TLC. We're all about data, as we always have been. And we all know data provides metrics. Everything electronic nowadays is storing some type of data. It's just how do you tap in and get it. So accurate metrics can certainly drive then educated decisions about where you want to go with your technology plan within a district. So especially this first bullet point, collect software and hardware usage statistics. Well, you know, how often do you hear when you're sitting around talking tech, either from an instructional technology standpoint or just IT in general, you know, wouldn't it be nice to know? It certainly is always nice to know that data because your future decisions are based on the success of that. So let's say, for example, a district is standardized on a specific brand of interactive whiteboard or something like that. Well, we can't really tell you how often somebody touches the actual board, but with an MDM, you can measure how often the actual application has been launched, time on app, and things like that. So you find out, you know, what individuals in your school are power users of your interactive whiteboards and which ones really shy away from it. So it gives you, again, data to make good decisions about where your technology funds are spent. The reports can be, you know, put out in just about any format with the nice graphics, and then you can also give, you know, the reports access to various folks that may not be hands-on, but they want to get in there and just get the metrics out for decision making. Grouping and tagging. Well, this is the way that our system keeps track of what's what and what kind of sorting you may want to do. So, for instance, let's say we might have a group called Cart 1, Cart 2, Cart 3 because you've got carts full of laptops or tablets, and you can isolate it to an individual cart so you can apply policies to a specific group of devices. Or you might want to separate it by grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, or school ABC, school DEF, and so on. You get the point. But the idea is, for instance, maybe you have standardized testing coming up for grade 3, so every tagged device that has grade 3 in a school district could be flipped into testing mode literally with a couple clicks of the mouse. You have unlimited grouping and tagging, so devices can be certainly in multiple groups and have any number of tags to help you then isolate and group them together for various control. So this so far has basically been the IT/admin side of mobile device management. So, you know, let's talk about what's in it for me. You know, I'm a librarian or a teacher. Where's all my cool stuff because I don't want to stare at that single pane of glass all day, right? So what's in it for librarians and educators? That's the classroom collaboration piece that we talk about, or what we call Smart Class. What this does is basically it's a classroom collaboration tool that allows teachers to control a group of tablets and actually see what's going on those tablets. So you're maximizing your instruction time, and you're keeping the learning focused. So there's features like locking the device just to get everybody's attention. The electronic version of flipping the light switch off to get all the kids to quiet down, that type of thing. We use our Sapphire Cast engine, which requires low bandwidth to broadcast the teacher screens. And also you can broadcast the student screen, so it's up to the teacher that's in control as to who they give control to. And along with that, you could even have students just doing their own individualized learning, and the teacher can be monitoring what's going on those devices via thumbnails on the screen. So, Big Brother's always watching. And again, when we go to the classroom level, we can do the same type of things with those groups of tablets. We can block web pages and specific apps. And again, this helps with that time on task because a teacher can have a lesson that's tied to a specific configuration. And when they launch it, they're only presenting the material they need for that lesson, and they've locked out every other option to play around, I guess you could say, for the students or participants in a training or something like that. So you also have whiteboard capability. You can have multiple collaborators editing at the same time. It's really how much chaos do you want to add to the one screen, but as they are collaborating, everybody in the class will see that same whiteboard space. They can chat along, so on and so forth. We also are able to send and receive documents and raise our hands. So with sending and receiving, a lot of times that's called a hand-in, hand-out feature. It allows a teacher to take a lesson and push various documents out to the students. They then reside on their tablet or device. The student can do anything they want with that and actually return the document edited, or maybe it's a worksheet or something that they're editing in Adobe or something like that. So there's the ability to do that. And then also a student can raise their hand. So think about that student who is reluctant to participate in most classes. They have the ability to chat with the teacher individually or raise their hand for a little bit of extra direction, yet they aren't going to be seen in front of the whole class, and be embarrassed if that's their thing. So again, we touch on provisioning devices for standardized testing. This is a very important feature to be able to take any grouping of devices and provision them for testing with just a few clicks. And I say that because a lot of schools right now, because of standardized testing requirements and the fact that a lot of states are requiring that it be administered electronically. We're not bringing the number 2 pencils and filling in the dots everywhere anymore, but eventually it'll be mandated that everybody has to be electronic. And what you find are a lot of schools that purchase a couple laptop carts or tablet carts, and they park them in a closet all year until they need them for testing because they're afraid that with the workflow it takes to get them prepared for testing, they want them to always be ready when that comes up. With a robust MDM, you can be using all your devices all year long, and again, you get them grouped together properly, a few clicks, and they're provisioned for testing, and you're ready to go. Now what you see here is just a screenshot of our single pane dashboard, and I certainly encourage you to visit us at our web page, and you are free to try out our MDM simply by downloading and registering. So I certainly recommend that you go in there and play around a little bit, and I'm always available anytime somebody would want to reach out to me for either a specific webinar demo to address their needs or just a few pointers here and there as you're playing around with that software. So I'd like to thank everybody again for their time, and I believe I'm handing things back over to Rebecca, and she will then handle the Q&A part of our presentation.
Yes, thank you so much, Mike. I do have a couple questions. Audience members, feel free to send in your questions or comments into the Q&A window on your screen, and we'll try to get to those. Mike, you mentioned standardized testing. Would we need to purchase additional software for this function?
No, with standardized testing, again, that is a situation where typically you're looking to lock down whatever device is being used to access a portal for the test. So you already have a device that you're using, and if you can load the agent at that point, then it's certainly a viable option to use for testing. So in other words, if you can launch the testing website on your device, then your device should work just fine, and you don't need any special hardware. Really, when it comes to hardware and the fact that we are operating system agnostic, there could be some devices that right out of the box the product doesn't work on right away, but certainly we can, knowing exact models and chipsets and things like that, we can very easily provide the APK that then makes that work no problem. That's typically with your Androids. When it comes to PC and Mac, there's fewer variations there to worry about. So it's mainly, like I said, an Android situation where you might have a specific chipset. But if anybody's already standardized, we can certainly make it work for them. TLC also provides customized hardware specific to school districts. So if you wanted to standardize on a specific spec for some type of tablet or laptop, we can help you out with that as well. And obviously, if it's a custom job, we make sure everything works before we even ship it out.
Okay, great, thanks. And I do have another question. I'm unsure of the exact difference between Smart Class and MDM. Do I need both? And can you explain how this works?
Sure. Our MDM is developed to be that single pane, but we have a couple other features, namely what we're calling the teacher portal and the parent portal. The teacher portal is in beta right now, but available for anybody that would use our MDM. Smart Class itself is what we call our standalone classroom collaboration tool, and the reason we say that is because to run Smart Class, you don't have to have internet access because you're not going out to the cloud for your authentication. You do have to be on the same network as the teacher station, but at that point, you still have all the same functionality to hand in, hand out. You just can't go out to the internet and get anything. So the teacher could use all the collateral on their device and push it out to the students. So what we do is we provide Smart Class with the TLC MDM free of charge. So eventually Smart Class will be one of those things that's a utility, sort of like in the library world. If our server goes down, we have a program that when we can't get to our database, we can still circulate items within a library. So think of Smart Class, the standalone, as being like a server down circ. If you lose the network, everybody can still work together without getting to the internet. You can buy Smart Class alone. If you had a situation where you really don't need internet, think of, say, maybe a military training class or something where all the students are, special clearances and things like that, so they're not allowed to take anything out of the classroom at all. They could use Smart Class and their instructor could manage that situation, but then they still have no ability to get outside or send things outside of that classroom as well.
Okay, good. Thanks for that explanation. And I have another question coming through. Does Smart Class work on other devices besides tablets?
Sure. Basically, I like to say it's anything that has a brain, but Windows, PCs, laptops, anything running Windows, and then iOS, so whether it's your MacBook or your iPad, it's going to work there as well. Same thing with Chromebooks, which are typically a clamshell type laptop, but you can also have Chrome running on individual tablets as well. And of course, just about everything Android. Off the top of my head, I don't know the version, but it's probably within the last 3 major releases, things are pretty good as far as Android goes.
Okay, great. And I do have another question here for you. And audience members, again, go ahead and submit those questions through the Q&A window if you have any for Mike today. In the meantime, you mentioned that it blocks pages and apps for websites that are not in compliance with the district policies. How often is that updated, or is that something manual?
Well, that would be up to the IT staff in the school district to update their whitelist, blacklist, or however they want to manage that. To be honest, if you're within a school district or on a municipality network, typically they're going to have a firewall in place, and they're going to enforce their acceptable use policies via their firewall. The ability to also have, I guess, sort of double protection by having a whitelist and blacklist built into our system just gives you more control. I think the biggest benefit of that whitelist/blacklist is really the lockdown for testing, to isolate to just a handful of small things on your device or laptop that keeps you isolated within that environment and only presents the things that are needed for that lesson for the day or that class period.
Okay, good. I have another one for you. I know you mentioned that people could jump online and kind of get their feet wet a little bit. Can you talk more about the online demonstration or demo and kind of what's entailed and what people can find out from that?
Sure. Actually, it's not really a demo. It's going in and registering and using the MDM with full functionality. It's just a trial period for 30 days, but obviously if you give us a holler, we can extend that any time for you. It's really about giving you enough time to evaluate it, but anytime you run a trial, you want to put a time period on it so it just doesn't end up out there in cyberspace lost somehow. But once you register, you get into the full dashboard as yourself, and you can use full functionality and test it out to the fullest extent. And certainly we're happy to anybody that registers and downloads, if they want a little bit of an orientation, we're happy to do a specific webinar for that potential customer, walk them through some of the basics of it, and just get them set up for success for a good trial.
Okay, great, thanks. And here's another one for you. For the library or school district that is resistant to this type of technology, how can we persuade them otherwise?
Well, I think you've got to look at a few things. In general, when it comes to mobile devices, and I say mobile all the time, but it's really device management, meaning all your PCs and your lab PCs can be on this same management system. But in general, if people are resistant to some type of device management like this, typically the way it works nowadays is people end up putting a bunch of devices on their network, and then it's all of a sudden, oh, what do I do to actually manage this situation? So along with that, I would say anything on your network certainly becomes a tool for instruction, but if it's not managed properly, it's just another computer on your network. So with the MDM, that takes care of all the IT part of it, and most teachers and end users will be unaware of that, all that going on behind the scenes. But what we have right now is, as folks standardize on various devices over the years, like I said earlier, maybe they started with iPads and found out that was cost prohibitive over time, and then they went to Android and Chromebooks because they're going to be the cheaper pieces of hardware. Well, they've then adopted multiple MDMs already. So a lot of times they're in place, but they don't fully take care of every device on the network. So IT actually ends up managing multiple softwares and multiple panes of glass, as they say, and that just makes it an easier situation to be more effective for IT. In a school district, most of the time the teachers and end users have no idea there's an MDM in place because most MDMs don't also add the collaboration part of it. In other words, a tool for the teachers to use as well. So it's almost like it was originally a sysadmin tool, and then we added more functionality to it to make it a true classroom tool.
Okay, great. And I've got one more for you. You talked about, I know you mentioned it earlier, about being able to kind of restrict device usage by location. Is there a limit to how far that can go, and how narrow can that go?
No. As a matter of fact, it can be handled a few different ways. In the sense of when we talk about geofencing, if we're trying to define a campus, that's one thing. But what happens is you can set up a situation where the devices can be anywhere in the world because they get onto a network and they're connecting to the server at that point from wherever they are. So and I don't want to call it distance learning per se, but it would allow a student that had their device and they were part of the TLC MDM to be at home sick and tap into a lesson if they wanted to, or for homebound students, things like that. And basically, by being on the network, cloud-based, traditionally a lot of times like the smart class side of things, TLC Smart Class, the standalone, you have to be on the same network to be able to see each other because it's peer-to-peer. But with our cloud-based servers, which are in Amazon Web Services, you're making the call to the server first, again, to get your direction on how to handle the configuration at that moment. I hope that answered the question without being too confusing.
That was a good answer. Thank you. And another attendee is asking, can you describe the standardized testing capabilities of your MDM again?
Sure. So when we talk about standardized testing, again, it could be for any reason. A teacher can use the device to do standardized testing for their individual units in the class if they're using some type of testing portal through their textbook publisher, or the dreaded once-a-year standardized testing that we do across the country for the state standards test. For instance, in Florida, you've got FCAT. I guess that's switching to Common Core at some point soon. But every state has their own name for it, and most all those tests can now be served up either way, electronically or the old paper fill-in-the-dot format. Eventually, everybody will be told we're not doing this paper system anymore, so you're going to be required to provide that portal for students to test. And in order to test and actually have it fair, you've got to set it up so somebody wouldn't be inclined to cheat or go out to Google to ask it a question just by launching another tab in their browser. So you can lock it down to a specific portal, a specific app. It's really whatever's required of that testing entity to give access. And then once it's locked down, literally nothing else can be done that's not tied to that domain or directly in that application. I can go on, say, a Windows machine, and I can turn off everything but my web browser and white label one website, and there's nothing else I can do on that Windows machine. Same thing with every operating system that we work with. Once it's locked down, until the administrator decides to change the config, they stay locked down in that state forever. So again, we're looking to provide a way to test electronically in a secure and fair environment.
Okay, great. Thanks.
And I'm sorry, let me add something to that as well, and that I had said earlier, because it's important to reiterate that a lot of school systems already have in place tons of laptop carts and tons of tablet carts that they just put in a closet and lock away somewhere, because the tech at the school level or at the district level knows if I let these go out in the field and into everybody's hands and I don't have control over what's going on, I have no idea what's going to happen when I open that card up to start doing the testing. So With a robust MDM, you have the ability to lock that device down, but unlock it, and you can always go back to a recovery point and have it set up exactly the way you want it to be.
Okay, great. And I know you touched also on being able to kind of customize hardware, and you discussed hardware a little bit, but one attendee is asking, do I need specific or specialized hardware to run these programs?
Again, nothing specialized. It's all about the operating system mainly, not the hardware itself. So if you can boot up into Windows, and now I forgive me for not knowing, but I'm not going to say we're compatible with Windows XP without having tested it out, but certainly Windows 10 and the last few versions, 7 and whatnot, should be fine. Same thing with Android. We typically guarantee, say, the last 3 major versions of Android. But keep in mind, we partnered up with a company called Radix, and we are an agile development house with our software. So if any specific customer has existing hardware in place and they want to add our MDM, we are 100% willing to work with them and make it happen, and tap our subject matter experts and do any adjustments or provide what would be needed. And like I said, typically that's in your Android environment because everything else is pretty standard in the sense of their versions, and Windows is Windows, and the system doesn't care as much about what processor's in your Windows machine versus it makes more of a difference in an Android tablet environment. So if you'd see our webpage, for instance, we have probably 50 different download APKs that you can just run on your device that then does whatever it needs to adjust and give the rights for the agent to take control of the device. Very simple process. I'm not a programmer, but I certainly know it's never been an issue if we can get the exact device or get the exact specs for the device to then guarantee that there's some type of APK to do that adjustment to make it work.
Okay, good. And I do have another technical question. How does MDM scale with regards to size or number of devices?
I would say it scales to infinity, and that's what you would expect with any robust system nowadays. There's no limit to the number of devices that can be in the cloud. We have, we don't. Our partner has some customers in other countries. For example, the government of Colombia made a deal direct with China on some devices a while back, and it's about 750,000 devices that are controlled by the government but provided to the schools. They're all being run from one single pane of glass. Now, granted, if they chose to break it up differently, they could have had different identities, but this is one all-inclusive system where the government's keeping track of all of their devices that they've pushed out to their school community. So we can basically provision our devices just about any way you want. If you have some type of asset management system that you're already using, TLC can more or less just load all that information right in, because once things are provisioned in our cloud, then we can pull that information out and feed it to any asset management system. We could also do a reverse setup as well. Let's say a school district already has 10,000 devices in their current asset management system, and they want to then add them to the cloud. If you give us the output of those devices, which hopefully would include something like the MAC address, we can easily plug that in for you, and more or less when you log in the first time, you're going to see all those devices just sitting there waiting for you. If you tell us how to sort them and tag them and everything else, we can work with you on that as well. Again, TLC is a data company, and we certainly are adept at manipulating all of our own data, for sure.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for answering all those questions. I am out of questions. So I will go ahead and wrap up and thank you, Mike, for presenting today, and thanks to everyone for attending. Please make sure to visit the green resources folder before you leave. You can download today's presentation, your CE certificate, as well as a couple of brochures from TLC that kind of give some nice visual representations of the products Mike was talking about today.
I did see one more question come in real quick that I wanted to answer. For the cost of the software and how many devices controlled, again, infinity devices when it comes to the cost, and think of the cost as being a per-seat situation or per device. So it typically runs, let's just say retail is about a $20 subscription price per year per device. But once you start talking about larger quantities, we certainly then put a formula to that and look to give you either district-level pricing, site for an individual school, or just individual classrooms. So we have a lot of leadway because it's our software, and we control it. So we work with our partner Radix, and we pretty much try to customize our quotes based on the need of the school that we're working with. And right now, by this being a new product launched in the U.S., we're certainly going to be aggressive to gain as many customers as possible. So now is the time to hit us up for as many discounts and rebates and things like that, because we want to get those good references going strong to start building the market for us here in the U.S. So I look forward to hearing from anybody. I'm sure my contact information is provided with all the follow-up here from this event. And reach out to me anytime. I'm always happy to talk to anybody about their situation. And if you go to our website, tlcdelivers.com, www.tlcdelivers.com, there will be a link up at the top for TLC Smart Tech. And TLC Smart Tech is what handles all of our AV and IT hardware, as well as our MDM and non-ILS type software. So yeah, definitely register for a trial, and then shoot me an email, or I'll get an email as you register as well. And I'll make sure that if you need a little bit of coaching, to reach out to you and help you out.
Okay, great. Thanks again. Thanks, Shirley, for your last-minute questions. Love to get those. Again,
absolutely.
To everyone who attended, thank you. Thanks to Mike Willis, our sponsor, TLC, and to Library Journal. This webcast will be archived, and we'll send you an email, usually in about 24 hours, to let you know when it's available. You can find this webcast and all other archived and upcoming webcasts at libraryjournal.com. And folks, we hope to see you next time. Take care.